Hey, security peeps. We are live again. This is Renee Small from the Breaking Into Cybersecurity podcast series. And I am here with Dan Schaefer again. Hi, Dr. Dan.
Hi, Renee.
So this is, Dan was here last week and he is back again this week to share with us tips and provide us feedback and updates and any kind of information that we need in regards to dealing with this current pandemic. Many of us are very stressed out. It's a new normal of having work and kids and all kinds of stuff. You probably heard my baby crying in the background right as we started this live stream. So, Dan, Dan's adopted grandchildren. So, Dan, talk to us. You were on last week. People had tons of great questions. So why don't we start off with how it's been over the past week with you and your clients?
It has been interesting because people are looking to take the kind of information we talked about last week about dealing with stress and coping strategies to deal with that. And they're trying to take it out to larger groups of people, and they're doing it through Zoom calls. I have two I've taught two classes at a local college, CW Post, on a yearly basis. But at each one of those, I've given every one of the students a way to manage and control their stress. So the professor called me up and said, we can do this with a Zoom call and bring all the two classes in together. So it's going to be probably about 50 people. So there's a way to do that on large groups of people. And it occurred to me that people may want to take what we're talking about here out to other people and present it in the way that we're doing it here. So what are they talking about? When I spoke to the school, I gave them three options. We talked about them last week. Remote management, controlling their mind game, and dealing with stress. Stress hit the top. They said, we just need to deal with stress. Because what I find is that it becomes really important for people to understand when they're stressed, how the stress impacts them. And from some of the things I did with my first book on loss and life transition, we talked about the impact that stress has on errors, omissions, accidents, and safety. And then the question was always, have people look at their own stress. Are you where is the stress coming from? So everybody could make a general statement. The news, the media, everything is going on. But in reality, everybody deals with these impacts differently. Some people just blow it off. Other people are terrified by it. So, and I have an interesting story. I had a client who ran a foundation. And she called me up and she said, I really need some help. She said, I'm terribly stressed out. She said, I have these meetings and these things don't work and I'm running around and I have a driver that drives me to different places for presentations. And I said to her, why don't you just spend a week looking at what really is stressful and what's action? What about your daily grind, whatever it is, gets you out of bed in the morning? She called me back. She said, very little of it was stress. She said, because everything that I do that I looked at stress was really important to my life. But again, it's how people control stress today.
Right.
I want to know how.
Yep. I mean, I totally get it. One of the questions so far is, I think you pronounce your name Joseph, is Wade. He says, what's the number one sign that you're becoming stressed?
I think it's different for different people. I mean, people could have sweaty hands. They could lose their focus and concentration. When people are dealing with loss and life transition, most people think they're working at 100%, when in fact they're not. And so there's a cost, and it can be very costly to be thinking you're working at 100%, not particularly when you talk about driving a car. I think people have to be very careful driving their cars today because they zone out because of what's going on. So traffic violations go up, accidents go up, and it becomes very interesting. But did I answer his question? I'm not sure that I did.
He just said the number one sign that you're becoming stressed.
It's
What's the
different
number
for
one
everybody.
sign?
Some people don't sleep. Some people overeat. People who use substances will use more. So it's really very interesting. Anger, when people feel they're out of control, anger is a huge piece of being of not feeling you're in control. And people realize we're not in control of anything today. We're only in control of what we can do, and that's why I think it's important for people to stay absolutely in the present. You know, one of the things I talked about recently in a post was about worry. People say, well, what, I worry all the time. I said, well, worry steals your time. So I have a worry strategy. What you do is you take, let me get rid of that phone. Hold on just a minute, Renee.
Well, while Dan is answering his phone call or handling the phone situation, I definitely want to make sure that we get some questions answered from all of the people on the live stream. So if there is an opportunity, if you have questions, please feel free to continue to ask them. I know, Joseph, you said, what should you do after realizing that you're stressed? Dan will provide us with all kinds of tips on this. He is probably taking calls from a client because, there he is. He's back. So Dan,
why don't we, people, what I realize is as I look at everything that's going on today, people telling people what they need to do, but nobody is telling them how. So let's go through a couple of strategies that I use with my athletes and people in business and show you how to deal with this stress. One of the things that people talk is this unending negative tape that goes on in their head, this internal chatter of negative self-talk. Anybody who hears that and wants to stop it, you can stop it in an instant by pushing your tongue up to the roof of your mouth. If your tongue is on the roof of your mouth, you can't think of anything. Ask me why it works. I don't know. It just works. And that's all that's important is it works. The other piece is that, and Renee has, we've been working together for a long time, and I showed her some strategies about how to knock your stress down very quickly. So anybody who is interested in this, here's what you do. You sit up straight in your chair. Put your hands on your thighs. Take a deep breath. And close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, imagine picture or see a number 5. And as that 5 changes into a 4, you have the choice to double or triple your relaxation. As the 4 changes into a 3, double or triple it again. As the 3 changes into a 2, double or triple it again. 2 changes into a 1, double or triple it again. Let that 1 float away off into the distance and imagine that you're standing in front of an elevator. Imagining the door opens, you step into this wonderful elevator with a big lounge chair that you sit in. You've designed the elevator exactly the way you want. You push number 1 on the elevator door, the door closes, you're sitting down, and you can feel the car starting to move down. You're moving, you're getting more and more and more and more relaxed. Now, what may surprise you is how much you already know that you didn't even know that you knew about your mind's ability to relax your body. So you see the numbers change on the door, 10 to a 9, to an 8, to a 7, to a 6, to a 5, to a 4, and you can feel the car moving down, 3, 2, and 1. You step out into a wonderful place by a beach. Maybe it's a beach you're familiar with. Maybe it's a beach you'd like to go to, but you've never been to before. And you look down the end of this path, and you see the ocean coming up on the sand. So you walk down toward the sand, and this is going to be a short walk because we're doing this in a very short period of time. Walk down, step off the path into the sand. If you don't have any shoes on, you may feel the sand on your feet. You walk through the sand down to where the waves are coming up onto the sand, and you look down in the wet sand and you see a number 5. And as you're watching the 5, a wave comes up and crosses over the 5, and the 5 disappears, and your relaxation doubles or triples. You move up to the 4. Now the 4 today is going to be right next to the 5, but you can make these as far apart as you want. So the 5 disappears, and your relaxation doubles. Then you walk up to the 4, same thing happens. The wave comes in and takes it out. Up to number 3, and wave comes in and covers the 3, wave comes in and covers the 2, and finally the 1 disappears. And you realize that maybe you have never become this relaxed this quickly, and it's all you doing it. And so the thing is this moves into your subconscious mind, and this will work for you for the rest of your life. It's not something that goes away, because your subconscious mind really wants you to be able to be relaxed and focused. So this is there's a lot else that we do with this type of a strategy. But right now, just turn around, walk back up the beach, up to the path where you came down, walk back up the path to the elevator, and push the button, the door opens, you go in, sit down in your chair, push number 10, the elevator starts up, and you can feel it coming up, and you feel energy coming back into your body. Now, I don't know if it's going to start at the soles of your feet, up to the top of your head, or if it'll start from the top of your head down to the soles of your feet. But one way or the other, you're realizing that you developed a tool that will last you forever to relax yourself when you want to. So the elevator comes up, you get out on the 10th floor, and your energy's back in your body and all. But what I'd like you to do now is put your thumb and your index finger together and press it, and make believe your thumb and index finger is a dimmer switch. And when you start to press on that dimmer switch, you'll notice that your relaxation starts around your neck and your shoulders. May be different for each person, but at any time that you're stressed, all you have to do is press your thumb and index finger together, and you'll start to find yourself relaxing. So that's one strategy. The other is about worry. People talk about worrying. And I say, what you can do that really works well is pick a time of day that you would do absolutely nothing but worry. Let's say you decided that you're going to pick 5 to 5:15. So you commit yourself at 5 o'clock, you're going to go into a corner and do nothing but worry. And so when you wake up in the morning and you're worrying about something, you just snap your finger, you say 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And your subconscious mind, after a while, will allow you to put off the worry till you get to 5 o'clock. However, if you decide you're not going to show up at 5 o'clock, subconscious mind is finished with you. It's not going to work anymore. But again, people have found that taking emotion for one period of time and placing it to another becomes very interesting. I have a client of mine who's an ultramarathon runner. She used to run the Badwater through Death Valley. And she said to me, I think about a lot of stuff when I'm running. She said, I need to have a way to not deal with that. So I said, well, what we do is create a trunk card, a card that you write all the things on your card that would possibly get in your way and that you would think about, put it in the trunk of your car and slam it. And as you're running, as you start to think about this stuff, you can once again divert your subconscious mind to worry or to read the things you have to deal with when it's in the trunk of your car. So that's what people do, And the interesting thing is people don't talk about it because these are competitive edge strategies that people use on a regular basis. I mean, I have a hockey goaltender who tells me when he walks out on the ice, everything disappears. He doesn't hear anything.
Gotta go.
So that's the story. So those are some of the strategies that people use.
Yeah.
To get an edge.
So I was telling some of the folks here, Joseph says this is life-changing and it's awesome advice. Some other folks are saying, Samuel said the good point is the how. When you talked about the how, people are saying what to do, but they're not saying how.
Right.
So.
Well, these are a couple of hows.
Yep.
But this is, this can be I worked with some very high level NFL football players, and I said to them, I said, this is about your game. They said, no, it's a team sport. I said, no, it starts out with your A game. Everybody has to be sure whoever's coming to the game brings their A game with them. So are you working on your A game when you're not there? So when you start to think about employees, people who work for you, your teams, people who have to go out and make decisions, have to talk with different people. One of the things that I found, Renee, is that I see very little difference between business and sports, except speed. There's no difference for any football fans. For, the 40-second play clock is a metaphor for every business. The minute a play is called down, a quarterback has got to put a business deal together for the next play. That's what it is. So people try to eliminate distractions. When we talk next week, we'll talk about distractions. People can even think about what distracts them and how to control it.
Right.
It's important that you don't let anything get in the way of what you're performing.
Yeah. Nirvana asks, how can we dream beyond what we know from life?
How can we what?
Dream beyond what we know from life.
What a fantastic question. I'll tell you what, is because most people don't. Here's how, let me rephrase it. Most people have not been allowed to dream. Dreams have been looked at as distractions. When I was in school, I said, don't daydream, pay attention, keep focusing on something. The value of dreaming is that when you start to work with your subconscious mind, in addition to your conscious mind, your subconscious mind does some unusual things. One thing is it must act out every thought, image, or idea that you put into it. And it will do that relentlessly unless you get in its way. So I've developed strategies in my practice to keep people out of their own way. But you talk about, I know a kid who was 8 years old and said to his mother, I don't want to play for the Red Sox. I want to play for the Yankees. And she says, well, we'll wait until you get older. Well, he already has played in Yankee Stadium for the Yankees scouts team and hit a home run. And it's, he's living his dream. And if people look at where they are, they'll discover very often that they dreamed about being where they are. So when people say to me, why, when you start with a client, you start in 2025, I'll say, well, I have to make sure the person has a goal. This is not goal setting, but has a dream at 2025, because you just work on the dream.
Right. And we talked about dreams, goodness, for years and years, right?
Yep. Yeah. And, basically what you did is you help people who you were working with, who you're recruiting, to realize their dream. But, people will say, we're hiring. I said, okay, when you're hiring somebody, I worked with a law firm, and the lawyer said to me, he said, we're trying to expand our practice. I said, we're interviewing lawyers. I said, for what? And they said, for whatever they've done. And I said, my sense is that I would want to hire somebody for their dream. What's your dream? Tell me where you want to be in 2025. And then as a leader, your question is, and a leader whose responsibility is development of people. And we did this in Hewlett Packard. Development with people. How do you develop somebody? You have to find what your dream is. If you say to somebody, that's your dream, I'll help you realize that dream and guide you through that. That's a lot different than it just makes management and development of people so much easier.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
what do people do well? The amount of people that have a job that they want to fill, but they don't have a competency model. We've talked about that for years, Renee.
Yeah.
The people you're working with have a competency model. I need a person who can do this, 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 and this. And how do we make that happen?
Yeah. Which is especially huge now in this industry, specifically in the cybersecurity space. It tends to be very skill focused. And these technologies, they change so rapidly. So the best leaders out there, they know, you hire people who know how to learn. Like, it's not all about this one specific skill, because that technology could be gone in 6 months. Onto something else. Yeah.
So that's where it comes back to person working on their own subconscious and their own themselves. And when you're working on a subconscious, it doesn't, you don't have to work on that. Once you get that message into your subconscious mind, you don't have to think about it anymore. You just go ahead. Because in both cases, it keeps you out of trouble. I mean, talk about an athlete talk about a hockey goaltender who makes a save, or a somebody who makes a fantastic catch. They don't think about the catch as it's happening. They just make it automatically. Well, that's already in their subconscious mind. So what we have to do is make sure that nothing gets in the way of what's in there as far as training goes and comes out. So it's how do you play that out?
Yeah.
But looking at it, how do you eliminate distractions? I had a football player say to me, to increase my concentration. I said, okay, what's in the way of your concentration? He said, I get distracted. I said, what distracts you? He said, the way I talk to myself. And so we started to look at how a person talks to themselves. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is they tell themselves what they don't want to have happen. I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. Well, subconscious mind never hears a negative command, never hears a don't. So look at the 2 times the Giants played the Patriots. First time, Patriots won in 18 straight games. Somebody said, who do you think will win? I said, I think that the Patriots are going to find a way to lose. So I was did a conference down in Dallas, and I was talking to a bunch of people, and they said, I hope you bet on the game. I said, I don't bet on games. So everybody called me, how much money did you make? I said, I didn't. But they lost the first time. And then the second time they played them, my belief is they were coming out saying, we don't want to lose to them again. And so they lost the second time.
Yeah. I think that people don't realize, because I learned this from you years ago, which was the focusing on what you want to have happen, not the negative, not what you don't want to have happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the way the internal conversation. You know how many coach people say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ever tell your kids, don't do this? What happens?
They immediately go do it.
Like a license to explode.
Right. Immediately. So Vic says, best strategy to overcome the imposter syndrome as we're confronting new challenges. He's looking for the best strategy to overcome the imposter syndrome as we're confronting new challenges.
How does he define the imposter syndrome?
I think he means, when you feel you're not adequate, like you're pretty much.
Great question. Yeah. One of the things that we discovered when we were working with Hewlett Packard is people who are at the very top of their game work on a level of unconscious competence. The 4 levels of learning. I don't know anything, and I don't know that I don't know anything. We run into those people all the time. Then, I play blues guitar. I don't play sax. That's the second level. The third level is I know what I do well and I win. But then when people really operate very, very well at a very high level, they don't really realize and know how good they are. And so it's important that people explore. That's one of the things we do in this process that I have, is to help people identify what they do well so that when they need to ramp it up, it's available to them.
Yep.
Most people are told, sometimes it's better, don't brag. Don't talk. Well, you have to brag to yourself. If you do something well, you have to talk about it. But if you discover that on a competency model that there are skills that your company wants that you don't have, then the question is how do you get them? So what we did with HP was we coached these people globally for a year. But they identified what they needed to have happen. So It's not like somebody saying, you need to do this. It's them saying, I want to get better at this because here's what my responsibilities are.
Right.
But I can't even imagine the pressure that's on the people that you work with, because the attacks never stop. The technology changes instantly. their ability to stay on top of their game has got to be incredible. And then, so how do you separate this stuff and get control over it? Well, there are some ways to control your mind game. Same way an athlete does.
Yep. So JD says, how do you wrap in your faith to stay true to your beliefs and dreams?
How do you do what?
Wrap in your faith.
Wrap in your
faith.
I think faith is incredibly important to some people, not important to others. But I think is that if your belief is that you have somebody walking beside you and you feel that, you're in a lot better shape than a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I don't, that there's a higher power. It's, it's bigger than us.
Yeah, it is, but you just look at what's going on now.
Right.
I mean, we talked about the impacts on business and not looking at stuff and the myths that people deal with on a regular basis in dealing with their business. And one of the things I talked about was black swans, and people say, "What's a black swan?" Well, we got it now. World Trade Center is a black swan. Is coronavirus is a black swan?
Yeah.
Nobody expected it.
Yep. Upended everything. Tyrone's on here. Tyrone says, hey, Dr. Dan.
Are you really there? Hey, how you been?
Yeah, Tyrone knows Dr. Dan.
Give me a call.
Totally. So Dan, we have about 5 minutes left of this. So we talked about worry. We talked about stress reduction. Did we talk about self-talk? I know you talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, people hear it themselves. It's whatever's going on in their head. It's the tape that keeps playing.
Yep.
Over and over and over and over again. The question is, it gets in your way. I think one of the things today, particularly with the pressure that's under the people that you work with, is you need to know when you're on and when you're not on. I'll come back to one of my goalies. I said to the guy, tell me what it's like, and anybody here can do this. Tell me what it's like when you perform at your best. He'd say, when I perform at my best, I don't hear any crowds. The puck is the size of a dinner plate, and the game moves very slowly. Anytime one of those three things change, I know I'm losing my concentration. I said, okay. I said, what do you do when that happens? He says, I hope that it'll come back. I said, well, hope is not a strategy. But he would use that strategy with the tongue on the roof of the mouth, plus one other that I can throw out and see if I can get this across in this tape. If everybody looks at a spot directly across the room from them, focus intently on that spot as if your eyes were a laser. Now, without moving your eyeballs, become aware of something in your left peripheral vision and something in your right peripheral vision. When you get those three things together, try to think of something. You can't think of anything. So if you need to focus and concentrate and to eliminate distraction, you focus on whatever you're working on and just become aware of what's on your right and left. And that'll shut your mind down. Now, does it work all the time? No, but I'll tell you, I had a woman who was 83 who said to me, her son was a client, and he said, my mother wants to meet with you. And I said, okay. She said, I want to improve my golf game. I said, okay. And I gave her some strategies. And I said, just before you tee off, I said, push your tongue up the roof of your mouth. And she called me on a Saturday afternoon. She said, I spent the whole day with my tongue on the roof of my mouth. But again, so what? And will people talk about this? They will never talk about it. Yeah. People never give their edge away. But I encourage you to focus on the thumb and index finger, because that'll bring you right down to a place that you will relax. And it may have been as relaxed as you've ever been in a short period of time, all created by you. Just follow the steps. 5 to 1, the elevator down to the water. Now, how long do you want to walk along the beach? 5 minutes? 5 hours? Do you want to make the numbers a half a mile apart? Whatever you want to do. And then there's some other strategies we work in based on what somebody wants to have happen. We have a wish list, and somebody will come down and say, I want this to happen and that to happen, and that's what they tend to do. put it in the subconscious, leave it then, and you don't have to work on it.
Right. Put it in your subconscious. So, Dan, any final words of wisdom until we talk to you again next week? I'll put a link into your website. Dan has written a number of books. He has worked with people during 9/11. He's worked with CEOs. Actually, Carly Fiorini was the CEO of HP when you worked with her team, right?
Yes, she was.
Yep. So he's worked with CEOs of major Fortune 100 corporations, professional athletes.
And in 16 countries. I mean, we've done this around the world because basically when you elevate somebody or promote somebody to a position of responsibility, you have to support them. You know, I was just reading an article in the paper about they got a quarterback. Some team just recruited a quarterback, and I said they better send some money on an offensive line so he doesn't get crushed. Well, that's what you need to do. But this is about you. This is all individual. First, you start with getting yourself together, which is not hard, and then be diligent. But notice when something distracts you and figure a way to remove the distraction.
Yep. Good points. Figure out a way to remove the distraction. So
take a look at the website, look at some of the videos on the website, and come back next week with the questions that you have. And we'll answer those questions and see how they apply to what your role is in your company and what it means to apply to cybersecurity.
Yep.
Keeping the bad guys out.
Exactly it. So Dan, thank you again for coming on. You're always so insightful, and I even feel calmer now that I've been on with you for the past half an hour. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Dan will be back next Monday at noon, giving us more tips, answering our questions, and keeping us sane during the time of insanity that's going on right now.
Absolutely.
In the middle of this medical crisis, this COVID-19 situation. So Dan, thank you again. I will put up links to his website, and we'll see you next week, Dan.
The basic questions: what do you need to have happen right now that's not happening?
Yep. Number one question.
Yep.
All right. See you soon, security peeps.
Goodbye.
Talk soon.